our spouses, with our children.
Hello, everyone, and happy Monday. Well, we are back, and today's topic is, I don't think a lot of women understand their adrenals dysfunction. What does adrenal hormone does to us, especially women going through perimenopause? That's the topic we bring today with Karla. And Karla is a certified nutritionist as well as a hormone balance coach for women's health. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, Amita, thank you. I'm so happy to share this, because we're literally wandering in this desert of information. Because guess why? Guess who does the research on women's hormones and perimenopause and menopause? Men. And it's like they have no clue what is going on. So I think it's really important to share with women, you're not going crazy. You have a lot going on a day-to-day basis, and then your hormones make it so much more chaotic. Literally 3 days ago from today, May 1st. So this was the 28th, the New York Times, and most newspapers give one free article. They had this amazing article called "New Study Shows Staggering Cost of Menopause for Women in the Workplace." $1.8 billion. This is not to employers. This is lost work time, lost jobs, medical bills. This is the impact on women whose bodies have not been prepared for the process of perimenopause and menopause. I happened to watch this. It was like this very short little, I just stumbled on it. There was a medical conference of gynecologists, and they were interviewing young gynecologist women. And the question was, how many hours of study did you have in medical school? These are gynecologists for menopause. The answer was either 1 or 0. So imagine going and having, anxiety and depression and hot flashes, and your doctor has studied for an hour or maybe had no instruction whatsoever. And you're going to them as a subject matter expert. And guess what happens? They don't like to say, I don't know. So there's this process you've probably heard of called medical gaslighting. And what medical gaslighting is where these healthcare professionals, they will either blow off your symptoms or try to convince you just a little cuckoo, that it's all in your head. And, that doesn't just apply to perimenopause and menopause. That applies to so many people. And so I want you to be aware that if somebody, your body, and if you think something is not the way it was, you advocate for yourself. Don't let somebody, medical professional, tell you that it's all in your head. Yes, your pituitary and your hypothalamus are in your head. And yes, they do control some of the hormonal fluctuations and help with the lead into perimenopause and menopause. But I really want to talk about the 2 organs that are in our body, the trunk of our body. That would be the adrenal glands and the ovaries. So our ovaries are functioning from the time we go through menarche, when we start our periods, up until, when I first heard about menopause, it was a 1 or 2 year process. You had your periods, you were normal, then you had a 1 year process, you went through menopause, and then that was it. Now they know it starts as early as age 35. So I had this wonderful, wonderful gynecologist. Oh, it's like I want to impart this to every woman I know. The younger, the better. If you're having really great periods, you don't know they're coming, you're not having a lot of symptoms, you're not, maybe a day, maybe a little cramps, a little bit, but you generally are doing okay. You're not like throwing up and having these terrible symptoms. This is the time to get your hormones tested. And you can do it online. If your gynecologist refuses, you can just type in online female hormone panel, and it'll pull up, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and things like that, because that will be your baseline. Get your copy and keep it so that 10 years, 20 years, 30 years in the future, when hormones are going like this, then you can go, but this is what they're supposed to be. I felt great when I was here. So you have that as a reference. To me, that's one of the most important things women can do for themselves, is to test their hormones. So, when we look at the adrenals, they talk to our thyroid, pardon me, there's a lot of intertalk with different parts of our body. And as we're going through perimenopause, where the hormones are starting to go up and down and then become a little bit more erratic, the adrenals, if they are functioning properly, as the ovaries put out less estrogen, testosterone, and our sex hormones, the adrenals are supposed to give us a little bit more of the sex hormones. They're not going to completely replace what the ovaries did, but they make that transition much easier. So that, yes, we'll have the ups and downs, but it's not as severe as, I've heard of women having 15 and 20-year menopause. These are continuous hot flashes, night sweats, anxiety, depression, suicidal thinking, weight gain, just being miserable. And it does not have to be, but the time to take care of that, those issues, is 10 or 15 years before you get to that point. That's where taking care of our adrenals, managing our stress, is so crucial, because there are multiple types of stress. There's good stress, like you had a baby, you bought a car, you got a job promotion. That's a stress. And then you've got what we call toxic stress. Maybe you're discriminated against. Maybe you've got a really awful boss. Maybe things are not good at home. You're taking care of sick elderly parents, terrible commute, all kinds of things. And then there's hidden stresses. These are the ones that fill up our cup of stress and wear our poor little adrenals out. One of the issues with adrenal function, and I don't know why this is within the human body, there's always a continuum from optimum to like really awful and it's not working, but it's a continuum with the exception of the adrenal glands, and the medical establishment says there's no in between. So, if you say I have adrenal fatigue, that's where they'll probably give you an antidepressant, sadly. So what you want to do is think about all the different types of stress you might have. It might be the hidden ones, it might be food sensitivities. Maybe you're a chronic dieter. Maybe you are a yo-yo dieter, up and down and up and down. Maybe you have dysbiosis or food sensitivities. There's a lot of things going on internally that we may not be aware of. And if we continually push and push and push, I wrote this little article for a women's magazine on stress. And at the end, I said, unfortunately, women value their time, their self-care time, slightly below folding laundry. So I want to make sure that women get a good screening panel when they're young and healthy and having great hormones. And then as your best first thing that you can do to protect your adrenals is go onto a search bar, whatever you're using, and type in, I just typed in saliva cortisol test, diurnal, which means day, 4 vials, because you need to do it different times during the day. Expect to spend around $100 to $200. If it's less than that, it's junk. More than that, they're charging too much money unless it's really specialized and you're working with a care professional. But this is something you can do on your own so that you can see, is it, because if we have a circadian rhythm and it's very specific for humans and it's supposed to be at certain ranges. And if you're if you're way too high at one point and way too low at the other, on average, you're normal, but guess what? You feel horrible. So doing this, you can do as many of these cortisol tests as you want. They're at home, there's saliva, you spit, spit, spit. Then you can target specifically to the time of day. Do you want to try some herbs that are calming at night because you can't get to sleep and you can't stay asleep? Or do you want something that's energizing, that's going to get you up and get you out of bed and energize you for the day? And that's why talking about specifics is really difficult, because, somebody might have a completely teeter-tottered level of adrenal output, where too much at one time and too little at the other. And if you just give a generic something, you might get a generic result. So did you have any questions? Because I've been talking like crazy here.
No, I think we wanted to make sure that, we get the correlation of adrenal. Now you
Right.
talked about testing. My only question is that especially when someone is going through perimenopause, menopause,
Yes.
the hormones are changing and fluctuating
Right.
every single day. And
Yes.
the testing might be different today as opposed to tomorrow. So how do you handle
That's
that?
right.
That's number one. And then is there a general kind of a guidelines to feed your adrenals?
So I'm going to start with the easy one first, the adrenals. And that is making sure as best you can to get as much sleep, following good sleep hygiene, making sure you're eating real food, making sure you're getting enough calories for breakfast. Probably the single biggest stressor I run across in my practice is blood sugar dysregulation. The average person, I do so many food diaries, they eat 100 calories for breakfast. And then it's like an hour later, they're at the sugar, they're at the caffeine because they, and of course that messes with everything. It wears out the adrenals, it messes with your immune system, it makes you feel terrible. And then of course you're beating yourself up, but then you're so tired and you're just going for these things. And then being aware of the different types of stress, good stress, toxic stress, hidden stress, they're all stressors. And so self-care, I cannot stress it enough because that is something that is seen as indulgent. People who do self-care, you tell a man, I want you to take 4 weeks off work. I think you're on the edge. Oh, great, wonderful. You tell that to a woman. Oh, but I can't do that. I've got to take care of my kids and I've got, and it's just the conversation. They cannot let go. So that's the point where you get there. As far as testing your hormones, obviously the earlier you can do this, and I mean earlier in your life, the better it's going to be. That's why I suggested, when you're young and healthy is a great time to take your preventative measures. But let's say you are 42 and starting, you wake up in the middle of the night one night out of the blue, and it's like you're soaking wet, it's like, what is going on? Or you're in a meeting, and all of a sudden you're drenched and it's like, oh my God, it's 110 degrees in here, it feels like. So if you're still having a normal, semi-normal period, and that does go on for a number of years. It's a fairly predictable. So there is a set number of days for doing estrogen and progesterone. There is, I think, 2 providers out there, but you have to work with a healthcare professional, where you can do a whole month collection. It's saliva, so that every other day or every 2 or 3 days, you're spitting into a little vial that's about that big. And so what it does is it lets you know exactly what is going on, as opposed to a spot test, because you're right, it's really different. The LH and the FSH is what, they'll look, you go to a gyno or a doctor, those are what they'll look at. And if they're normal, you're not in menopause yet. If they are, you're in menopause. Is that helpful information? Not at all, because you don't have anything to do with it, So it's better to know your estradiol, your progesterone, maybe even your free and total testosterone. That's why it's so important to know what's going on with your adrenals, because if they're, you can do this thing literally in one day. You can't be exercising that day. You have to be off of caffeine for the day. There's a couple of other restrictions about medications and things like that, but it gives you a great quick check. It's like, wow, it's like you're going through life with the gas pedal depressed, or you can hardly get out of bed, and you can see right here and you can show your spouse or your friends. It's like, see, it says I'm way down here and I'm supposed to be up here. This is why I feel so horrible. And then when you have, because knowledge is everything. If you have the knowledge, then you can find somebody or look it up or do something to take care of that. Because what we want to do is, if we can take care of the stressors, it really goes and helping the adrenals, and ideally with one of these tests, it goes such a long way toward mitigating these issues that women, it's a lot of times we don't know that we're in for it until it hits us. A lot of medical conditions are like that. And so what I'm trying to do is take a few steps back and help women understand that the earlier, if you're like over the age of 35, this is when you want, if you're 30, that's a great time to start. If you're 35, excellent. By the time you're 40, you might have to work a little harder. You might have to, go for long walks or sit in a bubble bath or learn meditation or something like that and practice these things, not just give them lip service, because all you have to do is read the accounts of 2 or 3 women going through these menopauses from hell. And, it's great motivation to say, I'm going to take care of myself, just little bits of time, maybe 5 minutes, 10 times a day. Self-care is the biggest thing we can do to help nourish our adrenals, taking the stress off, getting sleep, eating good food so that our adrenals and our thyroid and our brain are nourished with the vitamins and minerals and phytonutrients they need. Then the adrenals can go, I can now do what I'm supposed to do, which is to provide you with a little estrogen and progesterone so that instead of having tsunamis, you're having more like ripples.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. This is a quick 2-minute session that
it's one of those where menopause or perimenopause or adrenals, any of those could be like a 5-hour talk, and I just wanted to give women, I want to empower them because I said, knowledge is king. If you know what you're up against, you have friends, resources, the internet, you can do research, you can reach out and help yourself. And the sooner you start, the better. Don't wait till you're in the middle of it. It's really hard to dig yourself out.
I think that's a great tip for all the women, who are going through perimenopause. And sometimes women don't even know they're going through perimenopause. And that's what we are trying to accomplish here is what you are saying, empowering knowledge. It's so important. Women, it's self-care, self-prevention, understanding your body. All that is so important. And women don't even know. And then suddenly, boom, they are, osteoporosis, boom, all these issues, right?
Exactly. Our heart, cardiovascular health, our bones, our moods. I've seen women who were just normal, happy, outgoing, had a great life. And they got to like around age 47, 48, and they woke up and it was like their family didn't know who they were anymore. They were miserable. The family was miserable. And you see marriages fall apart, and the poor woman, it's not her fault. It's just, she's at the mercy of these hormone fluctuations. And so if you know that you can get a handle on this earlier, like years earlier, it's easier to take a little step every year than it is to like try to do one whole big thing all at once.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm
My
so
pleasure.
grateful.
Thank you, Amita. This was so much fun. I love these. I just really love them.
Yeah, no. And we are launching programs soon within the month of May, June for all these amazing things. We'll be in touch with you. To everyone else, keep supporting us. Thank you.
Yes, will do. Thank you. Have a great